The death of the Dallas Cowboys NFL player has sent shockwaves, man. I mean, it's sent shockwaves really around the world. Um, it's rare for something like that to happen, someone of that caliber, to take their own life. But what I want to speak to is the reasons behind apparently what happened with Marshawn Kneeland. Apparently he was dealing with some mental health issues. His mom passed away, I think, a couple years ago. Um, what's really, as someone who has a mental health background myself, I've talked about this in other videos I've done where I have experience in the Air Force, working in Air Force mental health, substance abuse, family advocacy. I'm also degreed in the subject, certifications. And more so than not, the experience in the field. So I've worked in the field, everything from suicidal patients to teaching suicide awareness courses to military troops to being on teams that will have to respond to traumatic situations. So I've seen it and done it. I've seen it and done it. And I tell you, when I heard about this, it shocked me a bit when I first heard about it, because it's like, first of all, the name was very familiar to me. And I come to realize it's because he's the guy that scored the touchdown against the Arizona Cardinals. And I was like, okay, now I remember him. I remember him now. That block punt return. And it sent shockwaves. But at first, I didn't know what happened. I think my first thoughts were that maybe he passed away to sleep, as some sports stars do, of heart ailments and things like that. So I thought maybe he had passed away in his sleep or something like that. And come to find out, that wasn't the case. There was a situation with the police department, Frisco police, and I think Dallas police, car chase. I don't know, man. At the end, he took his life. And I think it's unfortunate. I want to talk about just how, I don't want to say common. I guess I want to say how suicides happen more often than people think. They truly do. And I find this out, again, working in the field, working with suicidal patients. I mean, I've had jobs where I was in the military overseas in Japan, and one of my jobs was to fly folks from Japan to Hawaii or from Japan back to the United States to larger hospitals here in the States who could deal with folks who had suicidal ideations or needed what's called a higher level of care in the mental health community. So I've did it and done it. So, for example, we had someone who attempted suicide, but didn't follow through with it for good reason. That individual obviously would have to, they would need mental health care. They need mental health care. Unfortunately, in places like Japan, their mental health system is much different than the U.S. mental health system, totally different. So we wouldn't put him on that system. So we bring him back to the U.S. And so someone would have to pretty much escort the suicidal patient back to the U.S. And that was my job. And I did it for high-ranking people because Air Force policy at the time said that if the person was of a certain rank, senior execs and things like that, I was a master sergeant, so senior enlisted or officers, I would be the ones to have to do, the person of a comparable rank would have to do it. So I would take senior NCOs across the ocean, to mental health hospitals. And the officers would take officers. That's just the way it was. It happens in the military. It happens. And I think there's a huge, focus on it because of the magnitude of it, considering the smaller population of the military. For many years, people were talking about 22 suicides a day. And I'm sure it's much higher than that. That's 22 is just what's reported. But the suicide thing to me with Marshawn Kneeland, man, it just, the first thing I thought was, okay, what was behind the suicide? In my mind, it wasn't something that just happened. He didn't just get into an argument. There was something that has been there. And when they talk about his mom passing and all these other things and how close he was to his mom kind of helped him through his career, even as a youngster. I said, man, that had to be traumatic for to understand his mom just passed away pretty suddenly. But oftentimes, people of that caliber, people are so shocked because they think that because they're superstars, NFL players and actors, actresses, and how can they kill themselves? They have it all. But what people fail to realize, they're still human. They're still human. They still deal with the same things you and I deal with. They just happen to have a skill set, an outlet, so to say. That's an outlet for them too. for a lot of people who have mental health issues. Sometimes you'll see a good actor and you think they're a good actor because they're a good actor, and not realizing that's an outlet for them. They have mental health issues, and this is all documented. You research it all you want. The suicide of Marshawn Kneeland is just it's gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching. I know the Dallas Cowboys organization is hurting right now. The whole NFL, I'm sure, is hurting. A lot of people are hurting. That's a human being who found no other option but to take their own lives. So a lot of people should be hurting behind it. I'm praying for his family, and I'm hopeful that people understand that it doesn't matter your salary or your status. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You'll be quite shocked at the number of people who commit suicides each day. And I found this out through the hard way, working with suicidal patients here in Texas. And one thing I found is that suicide itself is viewed differently depending on your background. Some say that suicide is a sin in the Bible, and so there are some Bible Belt cities here in Texas that, that's suicide. You don't really talk about it. You don't really talk about it. I remember having a job working with, veterans, and one day I got a call about a funeral home in Abilene, Texas. It is in Abilene, Texas. And the call was shocking. They basically, a guy that worked for me out in West Texas out there, he basically told me that they had 4 sets of veterans' remains in a funeral home. But the shocking part is every last one of them had committed suicide. See, those are the numbers that are not reported, because when you have Bible Belt cities and I'm not saying I'm not painting this with a broad brush. I'm just saying my experience from what I know, what I understand, what I've experienced. Folks who are really deep into the church like that, they don't like to discuss suicides when they happen, and that's okay. I understand that. That's to each his own. To each his own. But all I'm trying to say is it happens more than you think. Sometimes it's not reported for different reasons. Sometimes the families are embarrassed. Sometimes it's they look at it again from a religious perspective as a negative thing. And some families are so traumatized by it they can't talk about it. But suicide is a real thing. It's a real thing. A lot of people are hurting right now. There's a lot of people hurting right now. And I tell you, I sat up last night and watched the news clips on TV, just scrolling through news clip after news clip, YouTube, everything, just on really what's going on around America. And I'm just shocked and saddened. And it's just not America, it's the world, but particularly America. America, such a rich nation. You got all these food pantries and these folks that you wouldn't think be at food pantries and, food banks. And it's just the suffering, the people that are crying, the people that are getting behind on rent and mortgages and bills. And it's the foods and kids not being able to eat, man. It's too much. It's too much. And people come to a breaking point. People come to a breaking point. You throw what's going on today on top of normal traumatic events like losing a mom. Throw that on top of what's going on today in America. It's tough. It's tough. So prayers up to the families of Marshawn Kneeland. Prayers up to the Dallas Cowboys organization. And prayers up to anyone who has lost a loved one to suicide. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.